Hello friends. In this video I'd like to discuss a very simple aspect of Yogananda's mission to the world, and specifically, at least at its beginning, to the West. He talked of creating what he described as World-Brotherhood Colonies. And this word colony is kind of an interesting one. When we lived in India, we saw many colonies in the Indian system, which are often places where residential neighborhoods where a group of workers, say the railroad workers, would have the railway colony, or different officers of a particular branch of the military would have a little colony. And Yogananda, in a sense, brought that concept to the West and tried to create what he called a World Brotherhood colony. And he predicted that these colonies would eventually, the ideal, the sort of mode of living would spread like wildfire. And as we see in these days, people get together in all sorts of interesting ways based on the internet and based on being able to collaborate with people of like mind. And he suggested that people do this as a way of creating balance, a way of creating a simple life, a life that he described as involving simple living and high thinking, a lifestyle of simplicity of living, but high consciousness. And there's a lot I could say. I could go on and on and on about the creation of these, because we've spent our entire adult lives helping to create and eventually spread the ideal of these colonies around the world, first in America, first in California, and then in other parts of California, and then later in other parts of the Western United States, and then Europe, and also in India. And there's lots to say about the creation of those things, but today I wanted to just highlight one tiny little sliver of the message that Yogananda gave. And that message was, grow your own food. And now I will qualify, I will give disclaimers around this, because this was not a fully formed thought with endless detail around it. This was just a seminal idea that Yogananda put forth. And in the practical world, many will object, or have already objected. Well, look, especially here in America, where fresh produce is widely available and widely and inexpensively available. Even organic produce is becoming widely available. Many have objected, look, you can just go to the store. I mean, for crying out loud, you're going to try to grow your own carrots or your own broccoli or beets or something. And, you're going to spend hours and days and weeks and months trying to grow 55 cents or $3.29 worth of, carrots or something. How is that worth it? Well, having done this in various parts of the world, in fact, 3 different continents, I can say that it has a lot of value. It's just that it isn't the typical value that you think, where, if your time is worth anything at all, it's a complete waste of your time. Because in fact, the process itself is valuable. I highlighted this a little bit in other talks on cutting firewood, because there again, it was a process that I enjoyed, and we, Nirmala and I, both enjoyed, and we heated our home with wood for many, many years. And is it always convenient? No, sometimes it's a pain in the neck. Sometimes it just snowed and you realize, oh gosh, I haven't filled up the wood bin inside, and the pile is way out there in the snow and I've got to schlep it, or it's raining and it's muddy, etc. I mean, on those levels, it can be a pain. And it's the same thing with a garden. You plant things. This year, we seem to have gotten a bad batch of compost. And so, a lot of the planting that we did is not thriving this year. It's like that batch, maybe there was something wrong in the microbiome of it. We don't know exactly. But, but you get, here's one of the things that you do get. You get engaged with the earth. You get to put your hands in the earth, which has a number of health benefits. But on an energetic level, when you get involved in your own diet to the degree that you are growing some of it. Now this was, as I mentioned before, this was not a fully formed idea with tons of detail. Therefore, we don't go at it in a fanatical way. We are not trying to grow every single bean and seed and grain and, whatever we may need, every matchstick or whatever. We're not trying to go so self-sufficient that, everything possible gets produced on our little plot of land. For one thing, we've got way too many people. Our density of people here in Sacramento is much too high for that. At least in the mode that we have to operate with right now. But what we can do is supplement a little bit of our diet with things that we harvest right from the yard. Things like fresh herbs, fresh basil to make pesto with. It's incredibly wonderful to be able to go outside, pick a zucchini, saute it up for lunch. 5 minutes later, literally, from the plant to the pot to the plate can be 15 minutes. A cucumber turns into salad. I mean, it's not that big of a deal to do a little bit. Even for those who live in a high-rise apartment someplace in Mumbai, in Belgrade, in wherever, anyone can grow sprouts in a jar on their kitchen counter. And, put it near the window when the sprouts come up a little more and it'll start to get green. There is value in that just simply for the fact that it's fresh, you cared about it, you put energy into it, you tuned into it, you got into the rhythm of the life force that it represents in your diet. And when you consume it, you're consuming some of that. And it creates a wonderful, if there are a number of people involved in this, their tomatoes may be doing fine. Ours are really, really slow this year. So we haven't had very many tomatoes yet, for example. And here it is August. We should be overflowing in tomatoes. But our zucchinis have done great. And a few other things have done. The basil plants are going wild. We've had pesto numerous times. So, whatever our strength is, may be someone else's weakness and vice versa. So we end up sharing and trading back and forth. But there's just a beautiful connection to the earth, literally the grounding effect of the earth. But there's also just a connection to the rhythm of life, the longer rhythms of life. And it's just, as I mentioned, this is just a tiny sliver of an enormous topic of cooperative communities, how to start them and why. That's literally the title of a book that Swami Kriyananda wrote, which I highly recommend. But in our vernacular, taking these things one bite at a time, one little section at a time, can often draw us into a deeper subject. And it's really, really helpful to engage in that. So I invite all of us to grow something, even if it's just a house plant. House plants, many of them are fantastic at cleaning the air. Often we live in very polluted environments, and I don't mean the cars and the carbon monoxide and the smoke from outside. We often create the pollution inside as well, from the kinds of construction materials we use, the carpets, the furniture, the candles we burn, whatever. There's a lot of things that happen inside of a house that can create pollutants as well. And houseplants can be wonderful at helping to clean the air in that regard. So grow something in your life. It's a wonderful way to just tune in and feel the blessing of God's energy moving through that life form and helping to sustain and enrich our experience of it. God bless you.